This is episode 0, about My Kid Cures Cancer. Hello friends, welcome and thank you so much for stopping by My Kid Cures Cancer, where we dive deep into all things pertaining to healing cancer and creating true health. This episode will be a little different than the rest, as I thought it would be a good idea to tell you a little bit about what the show is all about, what to expect from it, and a little bit about me. My name is Ryan Sternagel, and I sincerely hope the information and guests we bring you in the coming episodes are exactly what you need in your journey to healing cancer or making sure you never get it in the first place. And this is something we all need to pay close attention to. Just about every other person at this point will be diagnosed with cancer at some time in their lives, and right now there are about 1,600 people a day dying in the U.S. alone, and 6 of those are children. That's the equivalent of 3 or 4 full-size passenger airplanes crashing every day, carrying men, women, and children. Now, if 3 or 4 planes were going down every day, that is the only thing you would ever hear about on the news, and consequently, you would likely put a whole lot of thought into your choice if you did have to buy a ticket. Is this happening to a particular airline? Is there something going on with the pilots? Does it have to do with the route the plane takes, the origin, the destination, and so on? But we hardly ever hear about all of these cancer deaths, so it's up to us to really be intentional about our lives and make sure we're asking the right questions and focusing on the right priorities. And along this same line of reasoning, if we actually had all of these planes falling out of the sky every day, we wouldn't be putting all of our time and energy and raising and spending all sorts of people's hard-earned tax and donation money on finding the cure for a plane crash. We'd want to know what was causing the crashes in the first place so we could fix it and people would stop being in them in the first place. And given the fact that cancer was a rarity hundreds of years ago, and today we've got almost every other person being diagnosed like clockwork, something is causing it. You'll probably hear someone make the case along the way that it's just bad luck. The cancer is somehow intrinsic to most of us. The only reason we're getting more of it is because we're living longer. This is a debate I'm sure we'll dig into some on the show, but for me, this never really passed the common sense test. And then when my own son, Ryder, was diagnosed at 1 year old, and I started looking into childhood cancer rates, and I found out they've been going up right along with the adults, this is all I really needed to hear. Now, fortunately, one of the most well-respected scientific journals around, called Nature, published a study a little over a year after we got that diagnosis, confirming what I already knew to be true, that 70 to 90 or an even greater percentage of cancers are caused by extrinsic factors, or our environment and lifestyle, in other words. And when you stop to think about it, this makes a whole lot of sense. More and more synthetic chemicals are being dumped into every nook and cranny of our environment and homes and the products we use, and the world has never been a more toxic place as a result. Our overuse of antibiotics and disinfectants, along with poor home and building safety, have given rise to superbugs and exposure to toxic mold, the likes of which we have never seen. Our food has never been more contaminated and processed and even genetically modified to be unrecognizable and downright harmful to our bodies. We're bathed in an invisible yet ever-rising sea of radiation and electromagnetic fields completely foreign and disruptive to our body's own natural energies. The world has never been a more stressful place, and our culture has never been more focused on death and destruction over life and creation. All of this, in short, we've never been further from God and more disconnected from nature and the way we were made to live. And that, my friends, is the last bit of doom and gloom you'll hear from me on all this, because the recognition and acknowledgement of these problems can also lead to beautiful solutions. If we can identify everything that contributed to the cancer and the mechanisms by which they damaged our bodies, not to mention our minds and souls, then we can take the necessary steps to remove those triggers from our lives, reverse the damage they've done, and come out so much better than when we started. The most common sentiment you'll hear from someone who took this approach to managing cancer and made it through to the other side is that it was actually the best thing that ever happened to them, that the diagnosis forced them to take a big step back, take a real hard look at every aspect of their existence, pinpoint and remove everything that was doing them harm, and replace it all with that which did them good. Now, put that way, it doesn't sound all bad, does it? I can say firsthand that dealing with this diagnosis has certainly brought more pain and anguish to our family than we ever considered possible, but has also led to higher states of humbling grace than we could have ever imagined. At the time I record this, we're 3 years past diagnosis, and I can wholeheartedly say that our family is indeed better off in so many ways for having gone through this. We have an infinitely higher level of perspective of what's really important for having gone through this. And Ryder himself, ironically, will lead a much more supercharged, healthy, vibrant, and meaningful life for having gone through this. So, what to expect from this show? Better yet, let's start off with what not to expect. You will absolutely not find any sort of dogmatic bias woven throughout these episodes. And what I mean by that is when you get a cancer diagnosis, you really don't care about proving some diet you may have been touting as the ultimate healing diet, and anyone who thinks otherwise must be incompetent. You don't care about proving that one particular theory or cause of cancer is right in every single circumstance. You don't care about proving that one particular therapy or product or company is the best for every situation. And you don't even care about sticking to one particular branch of medicine or healing. You just want to know what works. You want to know what's got solid theory, research, and testimonial behind it, if there's a chance it can work for you, and if so, how it can be applied to your situation. And if two pieces of information fit this criteria but seem to conflict on the surface, you don't really have a dog in the fight to prove one right or wrong. You just want to understand how to best reconcile the information in a way that makes sense to you. So will any given guest on the show favor a particular dogma or another? Absolutely. Probably more often than not, in fact, because they'll have spent an inordinate amount of time researching that one particular topic and therefore be an expert on it that we'd like to learn from. But it will always be in the context of all the other information floating around out there, and we want to hear from all sides. I want to hear about genetics and epigenetics and metabolic function and microbial infection. I want to talk to vegans and paleos and vegetarians and pescatarians and starchitarians and any other something-arians. I want to learn from naturopaths and allopaths, osteopaths and homeopaths, functional medicine doctors, chiropractors, herbalists, health experts, pathologists, immunologists, psychologists, energy healers and scientists, researchers and fundraisers, and even experts on productivity and accomplishing goals like beating cancer, and cancer survivors themselves, and plain old everyday guys that just started hitting the books out of a personal need like me because they all have something valuable to add to the conversation, and to eschew any one of them would be foolish and downright reckless when people's lives are on the line. And you heard me right, I did say allopath in there, which is more or less thought of as a practitioner of Western medicine. Just as I don't subscribe to any particular dogmas when it comes to diet or healing mechanisms, I'm not some hardliner that turns my nose up at anything that comes out of the institutional world purely out of principle. There's a lot of interesting research being done on that side of the aisle that I want to know about, and moreover, there's a time and a place for everything. If I were to break my leg, you're not going to find me in the waiting room of the chiropractor's office, you're going to find me in the ER. More relevantly, if God forbid I were to find out I had, say, testicular cancer, I would certainly go an all-natural, non-toxic route and give it my all, but it would be comforting knowing chemo is there as a backup, as they do have some pretty good rates with that one and a few others, along with quite a few childhood cancers for that matter. And for families going through childhood cancer who are of course most near and dear to my heart, those parents in most cases don't even have a choice when it comes to whether or not their child is going to receive conventional medicine, which is of course something I'd like to see change in time, but for right now, we want them, along with anyone else who doesn't feel comfortable going 100% natural for whatever reason, to be equipped with as much information as they can be on how to manage that toxicity, protect the healthy cells, mitigate the side effects, and ultimately help those therapies work even better to give themselves the greatest chance of success. So we're going to be hearing from a good deal of integrative experts on those topics as well. This will always be first and foremost a podcast for people going through cancer, by people going through cancer. My goal with each interview is to always bring the topic back to actionable strategies you can implement right now to help you on your path to wellness. And that bit about actionable strategies is actually a piece of advice, by the way. I listen to a whole lot of podcasts on health and productivity, and the only way to really get the most out of them and improve your life with the information you hear is to take notes and then set aside time to review those notes and create solid ways of implementing what you learned into your life. Now, secondarily to being patient, caregiver, and concerned loved one-centered, along with all of us that just want to be the healthiest we can be and prevent cancer from ever striking in the first place, this will be a place where clinicians and healers of all disciplines can come to add new tools to their toolkits and better help their patients. Consider this part of your ongoing medical education, but instead of packing up and flying halfway across the country to an extra conference, you can simply fire up the latest episode in your car on the way to the office. Lao Tzu said in the Tao Te Ching that the wise man is the one who knows what he does not know. Alright, a little more on the technical format side of how these shows are going to go and how you can interact to get the most out of them. We'll start every episode by letting you know which featured guest is coming up and a little bit about them. We'll move from there to 1 or 2 questions from our friends. Which are you? If you want to hear our thoughts on any particular health issues or any practical tips on how we've gone about implementing all this stuff into our lives, shoot us a message and I'll do my best to give you a practical answer. After that, I'll probably spend a few minutes just on whatever health-related topic is on my mind I feel compelled to share, maybe a couple health or cancer-fighting tidbits I learned that week I found particularly interesting, or an article or a book I read or someone else's podcast I listened to worth mentioning, address any major health issues in the news, that sort of thing. And also any pertinent announcements on what we're up to you should be aware of. And with that, we'll launch into the interview of the week featuring a special guest telling us all they know on a particular topic directly pertaining to healing cancer or ensuring that our bodies are tuned up and functioning exactly how they were designed to be to give ourselves the best chance to heal or prevent for that matter. Afterwards, I'll pop back in for just a couple minutes to give a few final thoughts and fill in any gaps. I'll also be sure to let you know the exact address to take you right to the show notes on the website, mykidcurescancer.com, for that episode, where we'll have bullet points and links to everything that was brought up. Lord willing, you can expect a new episode out of us each and every week, and we'll be releasing them on iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube. So whatever your platform of choice is, we've got you covered. Subscribing on those platforms is obviously the best way to be notified of new episodes, and it helps us as well when you do. And also, if you haven't already, sign up for the email list. That way you never miss any of the other content we create, like in-depth articles, how-to or day-in-the-life type videos, other interviews that we don't make podcasts out of, and a whole lot more. We'll also send you the 5 things we did first, which is a document we made outlining the basics of things you really need to be thinking about ASAP when it comes to a cancer diagnosis. So be sure to sign up for that on the homepage at mykidcurescancer.com. And that's it. I'm sure we'll end up tweaking things here and there along the way, but this seems like a pretty good way to start. Alright, lastly, I should probably tell you a little bit of why we came to have a website and a Facebook page and a YouTube channel and now a podcast called My Kid Cures Cancer, and why I have such an interest in interviewing these experts. So as I alluded to earlier, my wife Teddy and I found out our son Ryder had cancer in May of 2014, which was just a couple weeks before his first birthday. The cancer was stage 4 neuroblastoma, which is a childhood cancer of the nervous system. Ryder had a tumor larger than his kidney inside of his spinal canal, along with 2 secondary tumors, and they had all metastasized into his bones. And this actually explained a couple things that we were becoming increasingly concerned about. At almost 1 year old, Ryder was not crawling or really even pulling himself up, and he had also fallen drastically off the growth chart from being born well into the 90s for his height and weight percentile. He had dropped at that point down to well below 50 for both. It was also discovered at that time that Ryder had a double aortic arch. The aorta is the main artery coming off of our hearts that apparently in the womb we start out with several arches, and that some get formed into different arteries and break down altogether, but very, very rarely some kids are left with 2. It was explained to us though that it wasn't life-threatening and we just have to get it taken care of at some point, so fortunately we were able to focus on the cancer. Anyway, so at that time in our lives, we were already starting to get into all things natural health and healing, and we're already familiar with alternative treatments and a lot of the success that was being had with things other than the standard of care. And we did want to go that route 100% from the get-go, but as I mentioned earlier, the laws in this country are such that parents don't actually have that choice. And that being said, looking back on it, those initial scans and how close he was to being paralyzed, the chemotherapy was able to shrink it down quickly and take some of that pressure off and get him out of that immediate danger. Like I said, a time and a place for everything. But with that, we were doing everything in our power right from the start to manage as much of that toxicity as we could, mitigate side effects, make the chemo more effective, do some cancer cell killing of our own, and so on. I mean, we must have paid $500 in overnight shipping charges alone just those first few days. And we had our parents running around getting all sorts of different supplements from health food stores, trying to find certain products and so on and so forth, just to make sure we had everything we were finding in our research to protect him from harm and fast track him on the road to health as soon as we could. We even found a naturopathic oncologist not far from the hospital who was willing to work with kids. And he was incredibly helpful to consult with in general, by the way. When you're going integrative route, 1,000,001 questions pop up on how to best combine all the natural stuff with the conventional, and they tend to be the only ones, the naturopathic oncologists, that can give you an actual educated answer most of the time. And all of it was rushed and messy and imperfect, but I'm so glad we did everything we did, as I know without a doubt that it all helped Ryder tremendously, and that he was and is so much better off for having gotten that flood of nutrition and alternative therapies in conjunction with the chemo than had he not. He certainly appeared much more healthy and vibrant than a lot of the other kids we saw in there. And this is actually a message we're always trying to spread, is not to wait until you're done with conventional therapies to start non-toxic ones. Knowing that there were things we could be doing that were going to help and protect him, we didn't let anything stop us. We literally had a juicer in the sink of our hospital room and a closet full of supplements, and every time the nurses and doctors would leave, we'd be messing around trying to figure out the best way to mix them together and get them down his feeding tube and whatnot. So we went at it like this for the first couple months and did see tremendous results right from the start. But at the same time, there was a lot going on with our situation and environment that we really weren't very happy with. The story actually kept changing as far as how much treatment he was going to be receiving, and we couldn't get straight answers on anything, and just a whole bunch of smaller but very frustrating errors and miscommunications all added up to us thinking that we could really do better as far as the best place for Ryder to heal. So we ended up moving to a new state altogether we now absolutely love, and it turns out couldn't imagine raising our family anywhere else. So as parents in childhood cancer, like I said, you really don't have much of a choice in whether or not you participate in the mainstream medical system whatsoever, but you do have a choice as to where you'll be participating, and we're so glad we made the leap and ended up where we did, because the environment we landed in was so much more supportive and collaborative, which really made all the difference in the world. And that really makes it all worth it for us. I can't tell you how amazing it is to hear that stuff. So if you've gotten something out of anything we're doing, please don't hesitate to let us know, because it really is what keeps us going. And actually, not long after, Ryder had made so much progress that his new team was all right with stopping chemo much earlier than the standard dictated and his initial treatment plan called for, and we've been all natural, and things have more or less continued in the right direction ever since. So as of today, the secondary tumors are gone. There's no more metastasis. The big one is a small fraction of what it was to start, and we're fairly confident in saying it's pretty much just scar tissue now, as it hasn't really changed in the slightest for over a year now. And tumor or no tumor, cancer stem cells are a very big hazard for anyone who's gone through cancer. They're what can go undetected and cause relapses down the road, so we're not taking any chances and continue to keep him on a pretty active regimen. And a bit over a year after the initial diagnosis, we did get the double aorta taken care of as well. And of course, being us, it wasn't complicated enough to get the surgery done in the same state we lived in, and ended up flying across the country to Pennsylvania, as one of the top pediatric surgeons who specializes in these procedures was over there, so that's where we went. And the surgery itself went incredibly smoothly, and Ryder recovered almost freakishly well from it. And along the way, we ended up starting our website, mykidcurescancer.com. Early on, we made a dedicated Facebook page, which is pretty common for childhood cancer these days, to help with fundraising and support and whatnot. And ours was called Fighting for Ryder, but it was a little different than a lot of them you see, because most of our posts were Ryder getting vitamin C infusions or slamming down barley grass juice shots and things along those lines. So we built up a bit of a following fairly quickly, and ended up getting so many cancer parents and even adult patients seeing our success with Ryder and reaching out to us with questions on how and why we were doing everything we were doing, that it just made sense to start an actual website and start writing articles about some of this stuff. And it's been really neat helping others feel good about getting into this approach, as we know there's this misconception out there that anything that doesn't come from a hospital must not have any scientific research or solid theory or actual success behind it. And I've really been enjoying showing that this is just not the case in a way that's easy for anyone to understand. We've taken to making videos as well, which you can see on our YouTube channel, which is also called My Kid Cures Cancer. And these have been fun because it's something we're able to do during the day with the kids and show everyone another angle of all of this, and how we're able to do all these supplements and at-home therapies and just live a totally healthy and non-toxic lifestyle in general, which in these days takes a lot of thought and intention, and I think people have been getting a lot out of them, so that's been really cool too. Actually, the best is when we hear from a cancer parent that was having a tough time getting their kid to go along with the protocols and eating healthy and everything, but then they watched some videos of Ryder doing it and having a great time at that and decided maybe it's not so bad after all. And with that being said, I've always really liked podcasts and have gotten so much out of them. I've got a big list of health podcasts I really enjoy, and I'm pretty much always listening to one whenever I'm in the car, and that's really helped further my knowledge tremendously over this journey. Especially early on, there was a very well-known cancer coach named Bill Henderson who had a long-running podcast interviewing various experts on all things pertaining to healing cancer that I went back and listened to every episode of, and there were a lot of them. And that's certainly where I'd point you if you get through all the released episodes of this show and are looking for more, because a lot of that information is timeless, and I still go back and listen to episodes here and there myself. Unfortunately, Bill was older and passed on a while back, and I kept waiting for someone else to come out with a show with the type of information and guests that I wanted to hear from. At some point, I realized I might as well do it myself, so here we are. But I do want to be clear that this is your show, so as we go along, if there's anything at all in particular that sticks out to you in terms of either something we're doing that you like and want to see more of, or would like to see changed for that matter, please let me know either on the Facebook page or at info@mykidcurescancer.com. We're in this together, and let's make something great out of it. All right, if you're still with me, thank you so much for taking the time to find out about what we're trying to do here. I really appreciate all of you that have been walking this path with us for a while now, and everyone new that joins in along the way, more than you'll ever know. And I can't wait to start putting more puzzle pieces together and furthering all of our understanding of what cancer is and how to reverse and prevent it. God bless all of you, Godspeed, and I'll see you in the next episode.